Hey folks, the more of you I see, the easier it is for me to do my job. When I see names, it's incredibly difficult to have the appropriate level of motivation and to be correctly incentivized. So please turn on your camera and I will reciprocate. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm here to help you communicate better. Storytelling is the 2021 buzzword. We use it, everyone's familiar with it. Some people get excited about it, some people don't. Effectively, what we're worried about is communication. That's the fundamental problem we're trying to grapple with is how to communicate more effectively to customers, to VCs, to anyone who might be relevant to your business. What I want to do today, in the first part of today, is just give you a framework, a structure, so that you know what the fundamental problem looks like. And once you construe communication not just as talking, not as marketing, as sales, but a problem that we can abstract away a bit from and recognize that the problem has certain features, certain components. And what we're trying to do when we communicate is optimize around these few components, these few features. That doesn't mean anything to you right now. I get that, but I'm going to make my meaning clear in a moment. And the takeaway at the end will be you can use elements of storytelling, and I'm going to frame it that way, elements of storytelling, perhaps storytelling in some cases, but in many more cases, elements of storytelling to communicate better. Okay, you see how I'm getting boring because it's not clear what I mean? Let me show you what I mean. This is this is our main model that we're going to work with. To set it up, let me just talk to myself for a moment. I like math. I like structure. I like clarity. And what I want to get you to think about in the next few minutes is that communication is a lot like trying to solve a math problem or an engineering problem. I'll state it kind of more generally. This, what I have in front of me, is what's called a Bellman equation. Now, a Bellman equation is something, if you ever took a class on machine learning, you studied reinforcement learning in that class, you came across this called the value function, which is an instance of the Bellman equation. And listen, what the Bellman equation does is if you have a problem where you're trying to, it can be a path of a robot, for instance, where you're trying to figure out the optimal path to get to some goal. What you do with techniques that use backward induction, and this right here in front of us relies on this technique of backward induction, which I'm going to explain in a second. What you do is you say, let me look ahead to my goal state. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to start from where I am right now and figure out how to get to the goal state. Rather, I'm going to start at the goal state and imagine that I'm very close to the goal state and figure out how would I get from being very close to the goal state to the goal state. And generally, that's much easier to solve than trying to figure out how to get from way over here to over there. And then once I solve that problem, then I can just work backwards and I can generate what's called an optimal path. Now, this is going to become clear now when we talk about your communication. The idea here is that whenever you communicate, when you pitch to a VC, for example, you have a what I call a strategic objective. What is that? You want to get investment. Strategic objective is the big primary goal. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to think, okay, if we want to do that, get the investment, what else needs to happen in order for us to maximize the probability of getting the investment? By the way, I'm just using venture capital as an example. It works with B2B, B2C sales. It works with everything, this model. But let me just run with the example of investment. If I want to get the investment, well, what's going to happen just before I do or I don't get the investment from the VC? Well, an investment committee is going to meet. The IC is going to get together and they're going to talk about the deals they've been looking at. And if you're lucky, they're going to talk about your company. Now, that meeting is going to decide, or at least influence, whether or not you get the funding. So when you think now about giving your pitch, talking to the VC, you need to look ahead to that meeting, which is out in the future. You're talking right now, the IC is going to meet next Tuesday at 9 a.m. So when you look ahead to that meeting, what you need to start thinking about now is, what do I want them to say in that meeting when they talk about my company, our product, our service, what we're doing? Okay, so now when we're pitching, we're actually looking ahead, thinking, what specifically do I want them to talk about when they talk about me, us, our company? And the idea here is, if you can control that conversation or influence that conversation more modestly, if you can influence and feed them their lines, have greater control over what they say and what they don't say, what they understand, how they can avoid misunderstandings when they're talking about your business when you're not there. If you can start to influence that, the idea is, if you do it in the right way, you increase the probability of getting the investment. Because what you don't want to happen is they meet and they don't really know how to talk about your business. They have the deck, but they don't understand it. They're not really sure what it's all about. They're confused. They're mixing it up with another company they looked at. If the conversation in the IC about your company is messy, that's not maximizing the probability of getting the investment. Okay, so that's very close to the goal state. Stay with me. Now, what needs to happen prior to that, even? And now we're going over to the left side, one click from this retellable part, which is what we want when the investment committee meets, is that your pitch can be retold to people who haven't even heard your pitch. Okay, so you talk to a partner, and then the partner is meeting with the IC, and you want the partner to be able to pitch on your behalf because it's so strong, persuasive, powerful, and she uses the right words. Okay, that's the retellable part. Now, for someone hearing your message to be able to listen, for someone to be able to retell your message to someone else, what needs to happen? This one is pretty obvious. They need to actually remember your message. Okay, so now when you pitch, you need to look ahead to a week from now or 3 weeks from now and think, okay, if I talk to this person right here, and let's just change it for a second. Suppose it's B2B sales. You're explaining to them what you do. Well, the person's probably not going to decide on the fly right now. She's going to talk to her colleagues later on, decide who they're going to use. And if she can't remember 2 weeks later when you become relevant again in their discussions, if she can't remember what you were all about, what you said, then she can't talk about what you said. And so therefore, if she can't talk about what you said, again, you're not maximizing the probability of getting what you want, the business. Let's go back to the VC. If the VC doesn't remember your pitch, if it's not clear really what you do and why it's important, then she can't talk about it and can't influence the investment committee. Okay, so they need to remember it so they can talk about it so you can maximize the probability of getting your objective. Now, all of this sounds incredibly obvious, right? You're thinking, why is this guy showing up telling me something so obvious? Well, I agree with that. However, if you look at your own pitch, or maybe yours is exceptional, but if you look at most pitches and you say, if someone hears this, what are they really specifically, what are they really going to remember 2 weeks from now? And often it's very difficult to figure out actually what you expect someone to remember. And I've heard, I don't know how many hundreds of pitches. So I do this that I'm doing with you now. I do early stage investing. I've been investing for a long time. I've heard a whole bunch of pitches, and the vast majority I don't remember. A small subset I remember because they were designed well, they were interesting, but most pitches are just forgettable, unfortunately. And you don't want that to be true of yours. So you know that you need it to be memorable so that they can talk about it, so you can maximize the probability of getting the funding, the customer, whatever. Now, what do we want them to remember and talk about? Well, we want them to remember the correct things. We want them to remember and correctly understand what your business is all about. Because if they remember they talk to you, but they don't really remember what your value proposition is, it's kind of fuzzy or they've confused it, they misunderstood it, then if they remember a misunderstanding of what you said, then they're going to end up saying the wrong thing about your company when they talk to other folks. And that's not really maximizing the probability of you getting what you want. So even before them remembering it, what you need, and this moves into the now of the pitch when you're actually talking to someone. Now we're in the present moment. When you're communicating, whoever you're talking to needs to understand nearly, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, nearly as well as you do what it's all about. Okay, so if when you pitch, it's confusing, like, is this, are you doing a service? Is this your own IP? Or is this B2B, B2C? If people are confused when you're pitching, then they're going to remember that confusion and they're going to poorly describe to others what you do. So in the moment when you're pitching, you need to have incredible clarity. Now, what does understanding amount to? Think about this. You want your audience, the VC, the customer, the person you're trying to recruit, whoever it is, you want them to understand you. What does that mean? In cognitive science, there's a way of modeling it that makes it simple, which is when I speak, I have some, and I mean this metaphorically, I have some picture in my mind. And what I'm trying to do when I communicate, also called a representation, when I communicate to you, I'm trying to get you to form the same image in your mind, the same representation that I have. And when you do, the picture that you form about my business, what our product does, what our service does, what we want, when you form the same picture in your mind, the same representation, we have understanding. Now, when I speak and I communicate, and the image that you form in your mind is different from the one I intended for you to form, we have misunderstanding to varying degrees. So, fundamentally, when we communicate, we're also, and you all know this because this is what you're probably most focused on when you're trying to communicate, is trying to get the person to form the correct picture. Okay, now again, just to let me be exhaustive, but a little bit boring, forgive me for that, is you need them to understand you to form the right picture, and then later to remember that picture and to be able to talk about that picture to other people so you maximize the probability of getting what it is that you want. Now, what is the most urgent thing that you need to get when you communicate? And this goes for written communication, this goes for a verbal pitch, live, on Zoom, doesn't matter. The most urgent matter for you is to get your audience's attention. If you're boring, if you say too much blah, 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 then you know because you've been on the receiving end of boring and too much blah, 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 you know what happens to yourself. You start looking at your WhatsApp, you see what's going on Telegram, you start thinking about your salad that you're going to have for lunch. If the pitch before you is not engaging, you don't give it your full attention. You know that. And the same is true for VCs and for your customers. If it's boring, if it's a bunch of blah, 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 maybe they're listening at 75% to you if you're lucky. But if they're not listening at 100%, there's too great a chance that they're going to misunderstand you, that they're going to miss something, in which case they can't correctly remember it, in which case they can't fully talk about it in the way that you would like them to. So the most important thing for you, the most urgent thing, is to get attention. And one thing that I want you to remember from this moment is attention works like a gate. Okay, because I'm giving you some very important communication advice right now. Don't be boring. Okay, and that's not an aesthetic remark. It's you can't be boring because if you are boring, your audience is not going to listen to you. They're not going to attend to what you say. So they're not going to understand, they're not going to remember, they're not going to talk about it. If you're boring, it's game over. Okay, so what you need is attention works like a gate. And what is the function of a gate? The function of a gate mainly is to keep stuff out, right? Think about gates. And that's what attention does. If I put my attention on something, I lift the gate up and I let that information come in. If I stop attending to something, then what happens? The gate closes, and doesn't matter what the person is saying if I'm not giving it my attention. My gate is closed, so I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to remember it. I'm definitely not going to be talking about it. Or if I do talk about it, I'm probably going to say, "Yeah, I heard some pitch today, but I wasn't really listening because it was too boring." And that's a failure. You don't want that to happen. So now we have, let's look at this. Now we actually have in front of us something to work with, something very specific to work with. You know your end state. I hope you have very high degrees of clarity on your strategic objective every time you communicate. You know why you're saying what you're saying. It's in pursuit of some goal. That's the strategic objective. And now let's work it forward. Well, whenever you pitch, you better be interesting. Why? Because otherwise the gate's going to be shut. If only, even if partially, that's not good for you. Okay, so cut out the blah, blah, blah. Don't say in 12 minutes what you could have said in 8. Make sure that what you say is clear. Know what representation you want them to form and figure out what's critical and what's not so important. A very common founder mistake in a pitch is to try to talk about a whole bunch of stuff where only a subset of it is actually important. Because if you overwhelm your audience, they're not going to be able to form the correct understanding of things if you give them too much. So you need to figure out, what picture do I need them to form for them to correctly remember what we do and talk about it. And anything that is not part of that picture that is really important for that, you might want to consider leaving out, not necessarily, but you might want to do it, because the more you bloat your pitch, your message, your communication, look, let's go back to step one. The more you throw at your audience, the more difficult it's going to be for them to listen to this, pay attention. Think about that. Pay attention, that phrase. Attention is costly. It's a resource that you're demanding of your audience. Okay? If you talk to a VC, maybe the VC is begging you to invest in you. That does happen sometimes. Okay? If you were employee number 3 at Google and you're doing a startup, right, the investors are begging. But if you're not employee number 3 from Google, the investors are trying to figure out, is this interesting or not? So when you talk to them, you're actually asking for something quite expensive from them, their attention. Because they have a million things that they're thinking about, a million other deals, and now you're talking, you want them to pay attention. Okay, so we're going to work on really focusing your message so you get their attention, they get it clearly. Critically, this is what's going to be different about what we do from probably what you've done before. Deliberately, intentionally making what you say memorable so that people can talk about it. Okay, now that's a bunch of blah, blah, blah. I get it. Okay, but that's the basic model that we're going to work with. Summary. Lisa, we try to get their attention. We need to make sure they understand this so that they remember what we said correctly, ideally in principle, so that they can talk about it to other people. Now, what's going to help your pitch go from here to here very, very quickly is if we simplify everything that I just said, and let's just zoom in on one specific goal. We had the strategic objective and those 4 tactical objectives: attention, understanding, memorable, retellable. If we just zoom in, Ajay, stay with me. I saw that yawn. If we just zoom in on the retellable part, listen to this. If we just zoom in on the retellable part and we say, okay, how do I optimize my pitch so that when I tell it to someone, they, in principle, can retell it to someone else? That actually, that simplifies a lot. Okay, brother, I understand. I appreciate you waking up. So if we focus on that, and it's a way that we can start to design your pitch. It's also a way that we can start to test your pitch. Because if you tell it and I say, okay, you just told that to me. 2 weeks from now, what do you expect me to say to someone else about what you just said? It's interesting. No, right? Because if 2 weeks later you expect me to tell someone else, oh yeah, that was interesting, right? Usually that's an insult, right? I'm an academic, and the worst thing that someone can say after you give a talk, someone walks up to you and go, "That was interesting." Basically, that means that your talk was horrible. Okay, you don't want to hear that. So what you want when you pitch your business is you want other people to say very specific things. And when you're thinking about when you design your message is actually what specific lines do I want these people to use when they describe my business? And we're going to work on that. Okay, we're all going to work on that together. We're going to figure out what these lines are. And once you identify those lines that you want people talking about, then we can kind of work back to this other stuff and find a crispy, compact way for you to work on your pitch. Okay, enough of me. Now I'm just going to throw you into the volcano right now. And what I want to do is start working with your pitches. Now look, there are a whole bunch of us. What we're going to do is we're going to work on pitches. We're going to meet a couple times. We'll work on some here. We can use the Mighty Network. You can post stuff there. We can engage. The goal at the end of this is that each of you, each company has a clearer view of how to give this pitch so that it's engaging, correct understanding, memorable, repeatable. Let's do that by someone pitching to us right now. Someone pitch. Who wants to do it? Ajay, you're off the hook, man. Wait. We'll wait till your third cup of coffee. Someone pitch, and then what we're going to do. So, by the way, just to be clear, that was a lot of me lecturing to you. That's done. Now, the best way for us to improve you, and listen, this is very important, is by actually workshopping things, by working on specific pitches. No more lecture. We're actually going to go through this creative, messy, frustrating struggle of trying to improve your pitch. And listen, when we're working on a pitch, okay, so if we're working on Nick's pitch, it's not you all just go check out Telegram and check out. Because when we're working on Nick's pitch or Ian's pitch or Claire's pitch, when we're working on someone else's pitch, you learn from it. So you need to participate, and you're going to learn by looking at other folks' stuff. And often, and I mean this sounds like the kind of stuff that people just say because it sounds nice, but it's not really true, but it is true in this case. You will actually learn a lot about your own pitch by watching closely someone else's pitch. Why? Because it's probably difficult for you to see those parts of your pitch that suck right now, right? Because if you did see that, I'm presuming you would have got rid of it already. So there's probably some stuff in your pitch right now that's pretty lousy, that's not working, that's boring or corny or something. It's much easier for you to see that in other folks' pitches. And then when you spot it, we're going to try to figure out what's not working quite so well. And then when you return to your own pitch, it's going to be easier for you to be a bit honest with yourself. Okay, so everyone must be 100% participant. Okay, not optional, not when it's your turn, always. That's how you learn best. Who wants to go? Who wants to pitch? And look, pitch what? I want to hear, if I don't understand your business in about 2 minutes, your 12-minute pitch isn't working either. Someone give me a 2-3 minute pitch. I just explain your business. And I don't need to see any slides, nothing. We can worry about that later if you want to. But if you can explain very clearly so that I have more or less have an 80% understanding of your business or 92% understanding of your business in 2 minutes, then you don't, the slides ain't gonna help me. So who wants to go? I'm setting up my stopwatch. Okay. Very
Do you have
particular.
any takers from the cohort?
Hey, look, I promise I'm actually a really nice person. I know I just showed up hollering at you. I'm really nice and sweet. Tim, that's true, right? Come on. I want you to succeed. Let me help you. Come.
Hi guys. Shall I go first?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Thanks, Riz.
Okay. I just wrote something while we were talking, a new script slightly, so I'll test it out on everyone here. Um, so let me introduce the business. My name is Riz, and I work at Tap Effect. We're a water utility business launched in 2018. We build and operate tap water networks that provide tap water direct to rural customers. Our vision is for families to have access to affordable, safe and clean piped tap water that's convenient, improves gender equality and increases economic activity in rural and semi-rural communities. We focus on designing, financing and building infrastructure, water systems that provide affordable tap water to underserved communities. We partner with existing independent local water operators through a franchise model, and we operate our own water treatment centres and networks as well. That's as far as I've got.
Okay. Cool. Good. I appreciate that. Listen, everyone. How you start is absolutely critical. Okay. Now, there's a there's a guy called Elmore Leonard. You'll need to write that down. Elmore Leonard is a writer of novels. He sold a whole bunch of them, and he kept getting asked by other writers, "What's your secret?" Right? Because most writers don't sell any books, and a very small number sell a lot of books. It's that long tail. He's in the long tail. And he said, "Well, my secret to writing is very simple. I leave out all the parts that people skip." Okay? I don't know about you, but I mean, have you ever tried to read some French novel where someone will, for 26 pages will describe what a tree looks like? I don't want to read that, right? You need to have a PhD in French existential philosophy to be able to read about a tree for 26 pages. Elmore Leonard, he doesn't describe a tree for 26 pages. His is dialogue and action, and it constantly moves. And there's none of that stuff where you flip past 3 pages because you know that it's going to be boring in his. That's his secret, he says. Now, we can use elements of his advice in our pitches. Leave out all the parts that people skip. And one thing that we want to do is we want to jump in writing and screenwriting and also novel writing, but particularly in screenwriting. There's an idea of getting in late and getting out early. So the idea is if you have a scene in a movie, then if there's something important in that scene, you want to get as close as possible to the action. You don't want to have to build up in the scene, watch the person brush their teeth in the morning, then they get some orange juice, and the scene goes on for a long time before the critical thing happens. Because audiences will get bored if there's too much in a scene. So there's an idea of get into the scene late as you can, just before the important part. And then as soon as the important parts happen, don't sit around and hang around and think about it for a long time. Get out of the scene as early as possible. Okay? Get in late and get out early. Same in your pitch. What we want to do is we want to just get in as quickly as possible to the important part. And what's the important part? For Riz, if I had to guess, I'm new to this, so you'll have to help me out. I'll know by the ends, but now it's all pretty new to me what you're doing. He's solving a problem, right? I think he's solving. My understanding is a very big, enormous, incredibly important problem. Okay, so he's solving a big, incredibly important problem, and that's what I want to know at the beginning. I want him to hit me with that. I want to have some sense of the importance of the problem. I don't really care if it's been around since 2018 or 2008 or this or that. Draw me in. Okay, and what's the best way to draw me in for a lot of the kind of stuff you do? It's just going to be show me the significance of the problem immediately. And then everything, once you draw me in, and I know that this is a big, important problem, huge addressable market, all of that, I'll get that from it. Then all the other stuff later on becomes details that bolster and support that. Okay, and Riz, dude, you're not doing a water utility business. This is not just a tap water network, gender equality, rural, underserved. I mean, all that kind of came later. Boom, at the beginning. What's the real problem? What's the most important thing for a human being to survive? It's water, right? So you need some bold assertion. Okay, the thing that human beings need more than anything else is water. A lot of people don't have water. Be more specific, Riz, with the numbers. I don't know the numbers. Okay, some of them, right? They either have to get bottled water, which obviously isn't great for the environment. They have to walk to a well that can be contaminated. Who knows what happened in the night? And give it to me and say, this is a major, enormous problem, and this is not acceptable in 2021. What people need is they need what you have, what I have, is they need access to tap water. We help give access to tap water. Okay, so there's a big, massive problem, and there's a simple solution. People need tap water. That's what we do. Okay, boom, I get it. Then I want to know the details. How do you do it? What are the installation costs? What's the competition? Right? Unit economic, all that stuff will come later. But at first, Riz, in that version, you could have just had all of us at the beginning if you remind, because it's easy for you because you work on this stuff all day to forget how big and important these problems are that you're trying to do work on. Okay, and just to be clear, I'm not saying you need to get all super melodramatic and wave your hands around at the beginning, but you do need to assert very clearly and boldly the nature of the problem. What's the nature of the problem, Riz, as you understand it? What problem are you solving?
Providing affordable tap water to rural communities.
Is that all?
I think that's the first problem that we're solving. Second problem is that it's safe and clean water, which promotes health versus the alternatives.
Yep. So, folks, let's abstract away. So, providing affordable tap water. Okay, but here's the question, and Riz was getting at this, is when someone in a community gets affordable tap water, what are the consequences of that? So here's a technique that probably many of you will be able to use in your pitch. It's called illustrating delta. Okay. Well, actually, I'm trying to be a little bit extra polite with you because I don't know you well enough. I'm gonna give you the real name that I use with the VCs I work with. Is what we're gonna try to do is illustrate delta. Okay, what is delta? Delta is this is the world right now for our user, and this is what the world is gonna be like after our product, service, technology for that same user. In delta is right difference. Go back to your finance class. Delta is the difference between what Sequoia calls the promised lands, right, and this ordinary world. So right now, Riz, for your users, there's some ordinary world right now, and it would help if we had a sense of what that looks like. And we want to know for that same family, that same user, that same customer, what is her life going to look like after? And the simple pitch technique here is you show me that before world specifically. This is what someone has to do. And for right? I live in Singapore in a fancy condo. It's hard for me to imagine someone in these circumstances what life is like for someone who doesn't have access, right? I can take the longest shower I want to, it doesn't matter. I can go turn the hose on, it doesn't matter. It's hard for me to imagine what it's like. So you show me what it's like before, and then what I need to see, and this will help me understand your business, is this is what the same user's life will be like after, and what happens in between the before and after your business. So when I see that delta, I understand what your business does because something takes the world from here to here. Okay, so I call it, and we do we want delta to be small? No, right? If delta is small, like, okay, what's the value of this? What we want is we want big delta. Okay, forgive me for this, but I just want to help you remember. I call it big ass delta. Okay, that's what you're trying to show. And Tim, thank you very much for the smile. And so that's an acronym that you can put in your notebook. You want to show them, you want to illustrate BAD, BAD. Okay, so it's simple. Almost all of you will be able to use this structure. This is what the user's life is like right now. We come in, this is what the user's life is like after. And here's the thing. If you only report aggregate statistics, so many people, this is what's going to happen, without showing as concretely, specifically for what it means, then we're probably not fully going to understand the significance of what you do. One of the best ways to get your audience to understand the significance is to show them that specific user, her before and her after, the delta, and then you say, and there are 3 billion people, right, like that. So you later on you can get to the aggregate statistics, but for that 3 billion, the 3 billion doesn't mean anything to me if I don't know what it means for a specific instance, a specific person. And you showing me can quickly illustrate to me, okay, because that delta is so big, is there economic value here? Right? Is this worth investing in? Is there going to be something sustainable? Will resources be used to create this big delta? And if there are, if I think, okay, people will pay for this, then okay, this is probably a sustainable business. Because if you can take the world from here to here, surely someone is going to pay for that. And this might work out. This might be an investment worth making. Whereas, right, if there's going to be a tiny difference, we're going to take a penny off someone's water bill. Who cares, right? That's not worth it. Doesn't make sense. Now, when we zoom in, and I'm going to keep asking this question, and eventually I hope it will make sense. I said, Riz, what's the problem? He said, providing affordable tap water. Well, yes, but there's an old, you've heard this before. Let me tell you this old story. Guy's walking down a road, and he comes across 3 guys in there. They're busting up some rocks. And he says to the first guy, he says, what are you guys doing? First guy says, we're busting up some rocks. What are you talking about? Yes, the other guy said, what are you doing? Like, well, they're paying me $5 an hour for this. Then he asked the third guy, what are you guys doing? He said, I am building a cathedral. Now, it's true that they're busting rocks, the guy's making $5 an hour, but one guy saw the real purpose of what he was doing. Now, what is the real purpose of providing affordable tap water? What does that do for people's lives? And that's what you need to help your audience appreciate. Like, look, this is not just about, they get 25 cents off their water. It's, actually, these folks, they won't have to leave home all the time to go get the water. They won't generate this enormous waste, right? All these plastic bottles in the Philippines, right? You've seen it. You probably got some of those pictures in your decks, right? Right. We're not giving affordable tap water. We're saving the world. from choking on these plastic bottles. And just try to abstract away and figure out, what is the cathedral that you're building, and each of you is building a cathedral, and you're not just breaking rocks, and you're not just making $5 an hour. Riaz, you feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Very clear.
Okay, so folks, what we want to get for each of you is that delta, know what the cathedral looks like, and get you also to a point where you can deliver your pitch to your customers, to VCs, to whoever, where it sounds real, authentic, not hyperbolic and corny. And right, there are lots of risks. Let's be honest. There are lots of risks when we start doing this, that we do something that tries to sound too dramatic and that undermines itself. And so what we're going to be looking for, we need to be very pragmatic. We want what works. And we just to simplify, let's put it on a continuum. What doesn't work? And it's kind of a inverted U. What doesn't work is if you're not specific enough, or whoever you're talking to doesn't really appreciate the cathedral aspect of what you're doing. It might just seem kind of simple. Like, okay, yeah, that's nice. That's suboptimal. At the other end is you overdo it too much and you get too dramatic and you get too corny and you overplay your hand by trying to play it up too much. That undermines credibility. That's just uncomfortable to watch. And so there's this sweet spot in between where you make it clear, you give some detail, you illustrate the delta, but it doesn't feel corny or manipulative or whatever makes us cringe when someone tries too hard. Okay, so that there's not trying at all, and then there's trying too hard, and there's some sweet spot in between that we're going to be looking for. And it'll be a bit challenging, but that's what we want, because we want what works, and what works is somewhere in that middle. Okay, Riz, good. Let's just run with this for a little bit more. Oh, actually, Riz, give it to me again.
Sorry, to give you the pitch again?
Yeah, but not right. I just talked for 15 minutes. So your pitch after my 15 minutes, it better not be the same pitch. So let's
Yeah, okay.
let's
I just wanted to clarify that.
let's let's decompose it a little bit. Okay, so the before world, and then we're going to have again the Sequoia Promised Lands. Let's just talk about that. For a representative user, sorry, I work a lot with tech, so I'm going to keep saying user instead of customer. It's just my go-to. For a representative user, tell me how things work right now.
Currently, rural customers, rural communities pick up their drinking water from shop vendors, ponds, wells, and collect rainwater. So that's the current world. They pay for drinking water, they pay up to 50 times more than they would for tap water.
That's an important number. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Riz, I'm just going to pause on that for a second, because I want you need to help, because you all already know, there's a lot that you all know that probably you don't remind your audiences of enough, because it seems so obvious to you, but to them it will matter. So for instance, if these folks have to go pick up the drinking water from the shops, get the plastic bottles or whatever, however they're doing it, ponds, wells, rainwater, and it costs 50 times more than it would, Well, resources, money, it's it's limited, it's finite. So if I'm spending 50 times more on this than I need to, well, that money, if I were using it to pay for tap water, with tap water, since it was 50 times more over here, I'm going to have some left over, right? Once costs have been recovered. And then, well, what can that money go towards? Well, children's education, a new roof, right? It's not just about water. It's look, what we need to do is this is a, and I would get just Southern preacher on them. I would say, look, this is a ridiculous allocation of resources, of the time to go get water, of the plastics that's just going to go into the street and the landfills, right? People are spending, look at the time and effort and material that goes into securing the most fundamental human need, water. What we're going to do is we're going to bring it to people's homes through a tap, the same way you get it. 1/50th the price per unit of water. The money, the time that went into securing water before can now be reallocated within the family to the children's education, to work, so they can generate more resources. And we're not just providing tap water, we're providing, and we need to figure out, what all Riz is providing to these families. But he's giving them a lot more than tap water, right? He's giving them time. He's giving the environment a break from all this plastic garbage. He's giving a lot to the world by doing something as relatively simple as putting tap water into homes. Okay, he's building a cathedral, and what he needs to do is he needs to articulate what that means clearly. Because if he only tells me tap water, like, okay, that's great, that's great. I didn't realize, I never thought about how much time it takes these folks to do it. I'm not thinking about the impact on the environment so much. Probably has a slide showing that. But if he can just show me that right there at the beginning, what he needs to do is he needs to get me fired up, right? Where I just find it intolerable that people don't have access to tap water, right? That's the feeling he needs to evoke in me. Now, Riz, I'm going to come back to you in 1 second. Remember our model. He has a strategic objective. Ajay, he wants to get the investment, whatever it is. He wants to take this message and tell it to us, so that, let's go all the way to the end, so that we can retell it to other people. Now, what do we declare? What we don't want him to do is to tell it to us where we just go, yeah, he's going to give tap water to people in rural areas. Because that's not going to excite other folks as much as it could. We want him to give the message to us in the right way, where we start repeating his lines about this cathedral that he's building. Okay, so he needs to look ahead to that. How are we going to talk about it? Okay, Riz, what's the promised land going to look like? What happens? So I understand the world now, what the problem looks like. What's going to happen?
The promised world looks like families have more time to work, so higher productivity. Children have more time to go to school. Their health and wellness improves, and they don't have to spend a higher percentage of their income on water.
By doing something as simple as giving them tap water. Okay, that's the tap effect. And right, I don't, hey, what's tap effect mean? How'd you come up with that name?
I think AJ probably knows better than I do.
It basically comes from the outcome of having tap water in terms of the changes to standard of living, the effect that it has, pipe water.
Okay, so all this, the cathedral, right? That's the tap effect.
Mm.
Okay, so
And the fact that another problem is leading cause of infant mortality and a lot of other medical issues is waterborne diseases. That's another thing that we're trying to address.
okay, so I haven't looked at your website. If I go to your website, is it just incredibly apparent to me what the tap effect is?
I think on the website it's very clear what the problem is and what we're proposing to provide a physical solution to the problem. But the tap effect probably isn't that clear or prominent.
Yeah, I think in the website we're more focused on the actual solution than the problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think you have a brilliant company name, actually. I didn't realize that until 42 seconds ago. But that's so okay, folks. This is useful for everyone because now I have much greater clarity on what we want people repeating. What I would as a first pass at this, if I were you guys, I would want people saying, "Look, you know what? Probably one of the single biggest levers we have on human well-being, it's tap water." Because right now people have to spend time getting these bottles which are destroying the environment. They have to go off an hour a day to get water. And just simply putting taps into homes frees up times. People can get water at 1/50th of the cost before. It, by just simply installing taps in homes, you get this enormous effect on human and environmental well-being. That's the tap effect. Have you ever thought about what your life would be like, what the world would be like if we didn't have access to tap water? And I would want, right, hashtag tap effect to be a big thing where people are fired up and they realize, wow, this is not about, you're not a water utility business. You're the tap effect is leveraging the impact of tap water on the planet and the world and just really own your company name. That's what I would want people repeating. Not, yeah, we talk to these guys, tap effect, they're a water utility business. No, the thing that you want them to talk about is the tap effect. So now we can start to go, and you see how this is an iterative process. We go back, and if I were you guys, as just again, we don't know it's going to work, but here's a test. You talk to a VC. I would say one of the biggest levers we have right now on human well-being and on the well-being of the planet is the water tap. Okay, I never heard anyone say that before. That's kind of interesting. It's provocative. And then you can go and you describe and you tell me about that before world, what people have to do. And then you show me the afterworld. And you say, that difference in the before world and the after world is the tap effect. Okay, and now you guys have tapeffect.com?
Tapeffect.asia.
Tap effect, who has .com?
I'm not sure. I don't think anybody has.
Okay, because let's make this into $1 million domain name, right? If you guys own the concept, and I think it's a great concept. Okay, everyone, you understand what we're doing? Okay, now we hear where we are. Riz, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I want you do your best to give us that same pitch that you gave at the beginning. I don't want you to fix it all because what I want you to hear is how much better it's going to be when you do it. So can you tell us that same pitch?
The original one.
Yep, exactly the same way.
Okay. Tap Effect is a water utility business launched in 2018. We build and operate piped tap water networks that are financially sustainable, scalable, and commercially investable. Our vision is for families to have access to affordable, safe, and clean piped tap water that is convenient, improves gender equality, and increases economic activity in rural and semi-rural areas. We focus on designing, financing, and building infrastructure, water systems that provide affordable tap water to underserved communities. We also partner with existing independent water operators through a franchise and improve their systems and operations.
Okay, now Riz, I hope now, and I say this because I like you. I hope you feel now that that's terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And I say
It's
that
boring.
it has so much potential, and you guys have a great company name. Really, it's a fantastic name, and I didn't appreciate that before. Right, and it's your job when you talk to people to get them to appreciate the tap effect. Right, Bill Gates. We need Bill Gates talking about the tap effect. Lisa, you understand? You feel me?
So would you suggest that that if I started by explaining what the tap effect is, or is it better by me explaining what currently happens in the present world?
Well, this is one of those things where we need to experiment, where maybe you do the present world, the after world, and you say that's the tap effect.
Mhm.
But probably that's the most sensible logic, where it probably takes you 20 seconds to describe the before worlds, maybe 28 seconds total, the after world, and then basically what you're calling the tap effect is the delta, right? Delta is the tap effect. Okay. So I want to talk to some other folks. We're going to try to cover ground, but you're going to start to see as we go through this, there's a kind of common underlying logic every time we do it. It will start to sound kind of formulaic, and it is, but you have to learn the formula by doing. So who else wants to go? Okay, I'm going to pause for 1 second. So tap effect, gentlemen, what I think would be great for the rest of us is if you got your 1 2 minute pitch pretty dialed in, and if you can share, what would be great is just an audio file is good enough. I haven't used Mighty Networks. I don't know how it is. I guess you can upload. I think if we do audio files, we're not going to go above the file limit. So if you could share with us on there your relatively dialed in version of the pitch using what we talked about right now, then that will be the basis for our next iteration. Okay? And that's good because they do that. Even if we don't get to you today, it will be great if everyone can do that with your pitch, record audio, upload it, and we'll all start helping each other. Okay, but let's do another one in real time. Don't be shy.
Oh, I see Angela unmuted herself, but I think there might be an audio issue.
I think you can hear me now. I'm using
Okay.
my cell phone. Yeah,
Good.
because I forgot to bring my earphone for my laptop. So just a quick thing. What I wanted to clarify for this pitch, do you want to do like what Riz did just now? It's a 2 minute sort of thing, just verbal thing, or I think the Habitat team asked us to do like a 5 minute pitch deck thing, right? So for this exercise, do you still want to like try to do like just the verbal what Riz demonstrated just now, or we should try to do this 5 minutes thing with the whole deck and us presenting it? What do you think, Neil? What do you prefer?
Yeah, we can do anything. So let's take a crack at the. Is your 5 minute fired up?
Yep, I'll try to do a share screen. Ta-da. So
So
just yeah.
Angela, 1 second. Let me just speak to everyone else. So we're going to
Mhm.
look at Angela's 5 minute. I am hoping that tap effect now, after what we just did, when they go back to their 5 minute pitch, I'm guessing it's going to look different. Okay, so we just worked on the verbal pitch, but you see they relate to one another. Okay, but let's try a different style. Okay, Angela, over to you.
So okay, just before I started this, I mean, I don't know how much the Habitat team has reviewed, but basically, last time we have to do the normal 5 minutes deck, right? And then there were some inputs when we have the investment readiness support, and then some slide has been updated according to that feedback. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So if you see the ones with the black heading, that's what stays from the previous one. The orange ones, the one with the orange heading, it's the one that I have already do a revision with based on their feedback. So yeah, just a quick overview before I started.
Okay,
Yeah.
Angela,
Yeah.
that what you just said doesn't mean that much to me. I don't get it that much. What I need you to do is just pitch it to me as you would pitch it.
Okay, there you go. Okay, thank you everyone. So, hi, my name is Angela. I'm the co-founder of Jordana. We are a fintech company based in Indonesia that focus on property financing. So what do we have aim to do? It's to basically make property more affordable and accessible and investable at the same time. So basically in this slide, what you will see is a bunch of problems happening in Indonesia, when it comes to property accessibility and property financing. In terms of, like for the down payment, for the rental, they have to pay in advance, or if you wanted to renovate, you kind of have to prepare your own money because there's no right financing products available from the bank. So previously, without us, right, what would people do? It's, well, they stay in the kos-kosan, which is a substandard house and work condition. But with the rental financing and the product of the down payment financing that we provide, they can upgrade themselves to a more proper condition house or apartments. At the same time, we also have, SME customers as our customers. So with our products, they can also do expansions if they wanted to expand to more restaurants or more shops instead of saving up just to try to set up one shop. So just to give you a bit of an overview on what Jordana does and our product. So basically, Jordana stands as a platform here. We have two types of customers. The people who needs the financing, in this case, is the buyer if they're doing the property purchase financing. The tenant if they're doing the rental or the renovation financing, or basically just the borrower themselves if they're doing the invoice financing. And our source of fund comes in from the lender, who are the people who wanted to put in the money, right? And the platform, what it does, apart from doing the credit scoring, also doing the collection and the financial, basically the administration and things like that. And out of that, what we make money from, it's basically from the service fee as well as the administration fee. The service fee is chargeable to our lenders, which is depending on the products, it ranges from 3 to 4%. And the admin fee is chargeable to the borrowers when they apply. So what's the catch for each of our user, right? So why would they go to us as opposed to going to the banks? Just to reiterate, for the mortgage financing, for people who wanted to purchase property, they go to us if they do not have the down payment ready. And then whereas, if they're looking for a rental or renovation to a product, they go to us because the bank doesn't have the product to do that, right? And we do not require collateral. So they can get, started on the property they want right away. And what's the catch for the lenders? Why they wanted to go to us and put money in us? It's basically, it's an alternative way to invest in property without the hassle of, direct investment, more tax efficient, non-speculative, while at the same time, they're actually helping others afford their dream property address or homes or business address. Well, so who do we target at the end of the day? Just to give you a bit of an overview, in Indonesia, there's the two types of people classification. The ones who are workers or employees, who are the fixed income type, and there's about 61% who are the non-fixed income types, which basically the banks, they do not want to really deal with the 61%, and they would rather deal only with the fixed income people, and hence make this even greater population. We actually have more unbanked population than the banked population. And how do we create impact? So we do it in three ways. Through one, it's from the SDG 8 and 11. So because we also support SME through our invoice financing product, and then 40% of the loans are actually, in terms of value, are disbursed to SME companies. And then for the 11th, it's basically the sustainable cities and communities. Through our rental, renovation, and property purchase financing product, we enable families to upgrade their living condition. And 30% of our users are actually coming in from the middle-low segment, if we are talking about individuals here. And indirectly, we also support the good health and well-being SDG, especially during the COVID pandemic. 25% of our loan disbursement is actually targeted and allocated towards medical-related companies. So just to reiterate, what we do is, apart from simply connecting the dots between the lenders and the borrowers, we are actually part of a bigger ecosystem. We work with other B2B partners, such as developer, property consultants, as well as property vendors, and doing all the services for them so that everybody can close their sale and get what they need. And so what have we achieved so far? Currently, we have disbursed about 1,100 loans, funded by over 3,500 lenders, be present in all the major cities in Indonesia, although due to the pandemic, most of the portfolio is currently in the Greater Jakarta area. Because of our B2B2C model, we also build strong partnership with over 400 agent partners and money property listing and interior companies. We also have partnerships with 2 major banks in Indonesia. And also in terms of licensing, so we already achieved the final stages of the license because in Indonesia it's 2 stages between registered and licensed. So we're already at the last mile of the license step. And what we are raising, we are raising 5 million right now. What it will be used for, it's actually for a 1 and a 5 years runway. So if you look at the composition here, predominantly it is actually allocations for the lending deposit. The rest then is more to basically finance the operational. A lot of it, it's HR related because we are a service company and not a product company. And last but not least, it's about the team. So I'm Angela as one of the co-founder and also William. So we both used to work in Sinar Maslan, which is the largest property developer in Indonesia. And this is where we learn about the pain points that each of the property stakeholders face, may it be customer, investor, developers, and agents. And we are also lucky that we are further complemented by having a strong commissioner who was the former president director of Bank Sinar Mas. So he becomes our advisor and commissioner for Gerdana. And that's all. So thank you, and looking forward to receiving the questions and feedbacks from you soon. Okay.
How long do you think that was?
I think about 5 minutes. I don't know. I don't really time it properly and try to kind of look at my watch at the same time. So yeah.
Okay.
How long was it, Neil?
It was 50% longer than that.
Oh my God, 7.5?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I will cut the problem part then, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, who are you pitching to? So let's make a very important distinction right now.
So this pitch deck is obviously it's for an investment deck, right? But my typical investment deck for VC, it's typically about 20 to 30 slides because we put in the TAM, total addressable market, and then we also put some slides on the competitors, right? On compared to other fintechs and other proptechs and things like that. So this is what I try to do for like the 5 minutes, which is just addressing the problem, the product, and what we want and the people, basically. Yeah. So that's one. And actually, I need to prepare for another event. So we are selected for kind of like a Shark Tank style, show, which is pure verbal and demo, right? And we only have like 5 minutes to do it. And I will not even show this kind of slides because you will not have time. It's more like describing about the product, describing the problem, and then go to demos, basically. So yeah, that's the thing, Neil. Yep.
Okay, so middle ground. So everyone, middle ground is usually dangerous.
Mm.
She has the 30 slide deck with
Mhm,
total addressable market, competitors, all of that.
mhm,
If you have a bunch of time, that's great. Angela, my opinion of this one is
mhm,
this is middle ground where what you tried to do is you tried to put as much as you could from those 30 slides into this deck.
mm.
And you talk for a long time. I was listening at about 60% maybe. It was just over,
Mm. Mm.
just entirely overwhelming.
Mm.
If you if I had to go pitch on your behalf right now, I don't know what I would say. She's doing some kind of lending in Indonesia for underbanked people. I don't know. That's all I got from it.
Mm.
So, but here's the thing. Maybe I just don't know enough, right? If I've invested in 10 companies that are just like this, then when you hear it, it all makes sense to me. If I don't really already have a good grasp of what you do, I kind of get close to not much out of it.
Mm.
So who's the intended audience? How much should you expect that I know about what you're doing?
Okay, so I always have this concern, right, Neil? Again, not every. Okay, maybe for VCs, a lot of them understand about the P2P lending side, which is kind of like a platform connecting the dots between people who put in the money, the lenders, and the borrowers. On the property side, it's not a common product, to be scaled up into a startup sort of a model, right? So if you see a lot of the prop tech company out there, it's more like co-living space, co-working space, and how do you say? It's more like hotel management style company like Airbnb, and things like that. So that has always been a challenge for me, like even just to address, those property concept on the VC side, because a lot of people do not understand that part or have passion there. Well, with this prop tech thing, it's a little bit different, right? Because like a lot of people here is understand the property side, but maybe not so much the financial side. So that's two sides of the equation. And yeah, another thing to add to my agony outside of those VC pitching thing is I have that Shark Tank thingy, right? Which means it's a TV audience with like the whole of Indonesia, which means I have to be. But the good thing is they usually understand the problem because Indonesian address, target market, right? They know the pain point of like having to save up for down payment or having to pay rental upfront. So I think in order to draw the sympathy from that, like they kind of get it right away. But I then need to kind of demonstrate the peer-to-peer lending aspect part, how they can participate as lenders or how they can apply if they wanted to become a borrower. So it's kind of like, yeah, I need feedbacks for both, but yeah, so that's what it is, Neil.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the best way to use, I think, our time
Mm,
here.
mm,
The it's asymmetric. If you get
mhm,
the VC pitch super dialed in, it's
mhm.
not necessarily going to carry over to Shark Tank. But if you get the Shark Tank stripped down, here it is, simply everyone gets it,
Yeah.
that can influence the way you talk to the VCs. You understand?
Right. That's why.
Yep. So if I were you, I would start getting this super dialed in.
Mhm.
And then whether you're talking to finance or property VC, I would use some of that to make a bit of this clearer. I don't think we have so much time right now to do it, but can you give us in the Mighty Network a version of your Shark Tank? You got
Okay.
5 minutes?
Yep.
Yep, I think that's what you should work on.
Okay.
That,
Cool.
that- that's going to give you the most leverage.
Right. Right. Yeah. I will start rehearsing for that this Friday, to be honest. So like, yeah, I can post it probably over the weekend or next week or so. Yeah.
Okay. This, yeah, again, this, just to repeat myself, I'm not sure how well this is working, but I got about 10% out of it.
Right. So yeah,
It had too high of a word count and not enough. I don't see, where's the tap effect in there? I don't know how what you do is different. I need a tap effect.
mm, okay. So I think because we got distracted with the slide, which is the VC slide, right? So what I was trying to illustrate that it was, when I was talking about the problem, right? Yeah. So previously, with all these sorts of problem, then they would have to stay with their parents or in-laws or stay in a substandard house. In Indonesia, we call it kos-kosan. But with our products, then they can stay in their own decent housing. They can do business expansion for not multiple locations and things like that. So it was something that I tried to verbalize, as I do the presentation, hearing the feedback that you gave to Ritz just now, right? So and yeah, and I think it's kind of like if we do slides, then people kind of get focused on the slide as opposed to listening to what you have to say. So it's a counterproductive thing in a sense, but yeah, if you present to feces, then they expect the slide. But if you do the normal audience, let's say Shark Tank thing, right, you will not have time for slides anyway. So people will just like listen to you. So yeah,
A lot of VCs, look, a lot of VCs, yeah, they do want a deck,
Mhm.
but they don't want size 12 font. I mean, yours was, I couldn't listen to what you were saying because there was so much, like, go back to slide number, second slide after the
sorry,
title slide, first slide after the title slide.
this one, yeah.
I still just see thank you on my screen.
Oh, okay. I think it's hang right
Okay,
now.
not a problem.
How about this? Okay, so okay, this works, right? I think you can see it now.
Yep. So
Okay.
you showed me this and you were talking, but I was just like a cat distracted by all of this. And so I didn't hear what you were saying. And I was 50% divided between what you were saying and this. And
Mhm,
you just dove into it.
mhm.
And here, look, everyone, listen. Can you go back to your title slide, Angela?
Yep.
Folks, everyone, listen. It's perfectly okay at this point right here for you to say what everything is about.
Mm,
And that will help.
mm,
What do most folks do? Most folks do exactly what Angela did. Here's we are here. Okay, here's the company name. Boom, next slide, overwhelming. Let me tell you what we do. And I'm distracted by her talking. I'm distracted by the slide. If she had just told me right here, and Riz, this will be true for what you guys do too. Just before you show any slides, just give me the takeaway. Just simplify it, and then after that, when you go through the slides, I already know what it's all about, and so I have some conceptual structure in place to make sense of things. But almost, I mean, because people just learn by watching a bunch of bad presentations that your title slide is just it, and then your first slide you start telling them what it's all about. But you can actually, and this is why it's good to work without slides a lot. You should be able to give me 50% of what I need to know
mm,
without any slides, without any support. And everything else is just clean up details. But what generally a bad or often a bad strategy is you try to slowly construct by working through your slides what it's all about.
mhm.
Let the slides just give details. Tell me what it's about at the beginning. Because that's confusing, especially if it's new. And especially, Angela, if there's a ton of text on the slides and you're talking at 300 miles an hour. Okay, so everyone, listen, you are perfectly licensed to say what it's all about in 30 seconds just over your title slide. right? And actually, what you want is kind of, if someone had to leave the pitch right then,
Mm.
they kind of already know what it was about,
Mm.
right? They'll ask their colleagues, "Oh, is it a big market?" They can ask some details later,
Mm.
but they should pretty much be able to remember it before seeing any of your slides after the title slide. Give yourself that goal.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks for the great feedback, Neil. We'll do that. Thank
Okay,
you.
Andrew, you're going to be successful. I feel it.
Amen.
Okay, someone.
Can I try?
Can.
Yes. So I share my screen. So okay. Can you see the slides there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, I'm Yi. I'm the director of My Dream Home from Cambodia. So people say home is happiness, and even birthday can build the nest. But how about human? So we expect that people can build beautiful home with their own hand. In Cambodia, there are three main problems that prevent low and middle income access to affordable house. First, the price of the house that is expensive. Uh, in addition, the land price is also increasingly, and people need also to pay upfront payment with the high interest rate. When they find the company to build a house, they need to, sometimes people spend their entire money to build a house, but they cannot, for the labor, they don't have good skill, and the labor cost is also expensive. For the building material, there is no material that allow people to build a house by themselves. To solve this issue, My Dream Home developed a simple technology that train people to build a house. So local builders, they have opportunity to make money, while homeowner, they also can build a house by themselves, so they can save money, and they can build a strong and beautiful home. In Cambodia, there is a need of 1 million homes based on the government statistic and also from the Habitat for Humanity. There are around 5,000 projects in last year that was around 7.5 billion, and it decreased around 32% due to the pandemic. For the market side, it estimates that the total value, it was 63 billion, as the need of 1 million, and the average price of the house is 63K. So for affordable house, there are three key developers now that develop affordable house, and their average house price is around 40K. So the estimate value is 16 billion US dollars. For My Dream Home, we expect that we could supply enough brick to build around 5,000 affordable home, and we just sell on the brick, so the value that we can get is around 7 million. The Lego library. This brick is when putting together to build a wall, this brick use less labor intensive, less cement, and less material. The house no need to plastering, and it even 3 times stronger. My dream home make revenue 25% from selling the bricks. Every day we sell around 3 to 500 square meter, and per square meter we sell it at $7. So we make the daily revenue around 2,100 to 3,500. It expects that in 2025, the revenue from the brick will increase 10 times based on the demand. There's two main competitors in the market. First is the Wellbridge Group that hold by one tycoon in Cambodia. They also involved in building affordable house. And for the product, we face the demand that produced by local producer. There are a lot of producers that produce red clay brick in Cambodia. For our competitive advantage, we produce the brick that system is effective like a Lego, so people can build by themselves. Second, we are the largest brick producers in the Asian country also, and the business is also recognized by the government as the inclusive business, and we will get support from the government in terms of fund guarantee. And we just recently got the license, the brand license. And in terms of the branding, my dream home is the one that have around 1,000 physical display, and for the network of group we have 74K people like. We have a strong team that committed to make affordable housing happen. For me, I have 7 years experience in working with NGO, and Melong, he have a skill in marketing, and he also used to develop affordable home to sell also. And he a production manager that can develop more effective tool to support for the business. So far, my dream home build nearly 100 home, and we employ 22 workers. We reuse 2,700 tons of carbon emission. And in the 2025, we expect we could build more than 5,000 homes and reuse more than 45,000 tons of carbon emission. Here, what customers say about our product. They say the house that made from this brick is not expensive and the poor can afford. And the house is also comfort, it's cool compared to the other house nearby. For engineers, they say it's save money and save time. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. How long do you think that was?
Yes.
How long do you think you pitched for? How many minutes?
I don't start the timing, but it should be around 7 minutes.
Yep. So around 7 minutes.
Yes. But it should be 5 minutes, so I need to cut some part.
Yep. What is your ask at the end?
Actually, I should add one ask that I need around 200K to increase the revenue. Now I can specific. if you look at the business model here, actually I need around 200K, and I need 200K to make the revenue increase 10 times by 2025.
Okay. Did you say that or did I miss that?
I did not say that in the pitch, but I should add one more slide maybe at the end to make sure that what I asked from the investor.
Yep. Okay, help me. I think one of the most, can you go to slide 11?
11, yes.
No, it's, sorry, slide 9.
Slide 9, yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest producer of these Lego bricks, who developed the Lego brick idea? Is this your IP or what do you guys?
Uh, the Lego light brick. This one, actually Lego, it it already a patent, but the technology is like we make from the soil and cement and we compress, and the system it just like we do like a Lego. Like here.
I get it. I'm just wondering how distinct what you're doing is from the other folks.
We can see it that.
Yep.
So the different here, what we do is we train that building technology for local producers, and they can build for other and make money. And people, they can be trained within 3 hours to build a house by themselves.
That's a pretty impressive number. So so they can be trained in 3 hours, and then how long does it take to build a home, and how long does it normally take to build a home using the
Normally, when they build with traditional clay brick for a home, let's say 100 square meter, it takes 4 to 6 months. And when they build with this brick, it takes around 1 month and a half to 2 months and a half to build the same size of a house. And they even use less worker.
So you can build a home in 1/3 the time,
Yes.
2/3 the cost.
For the cost, we can reduce by up to 40% if homeowner involved in building the house.
Okay, go back to the beginning, the first slide. Yep, next slide. Slide number 2.
This too.
Yeah, I want to see, yeah. Okay, this is another one, and I don't know, I haven't seen what everyone else is doing, but probably there's some other folks here who are doing things at least directionally related to this, and your setup is organization of slides is probably similar. First of all, your pitch was very clear to me. I understand exactly what you do. If we want to improve it, and I don't think that there's a huge need to improve it, but if you want to improve it, I think just at the beginning, giving me some sense of what the actual savings are going to be. I understand the problem right now, But before we even get to that, it
Yes.
said we can train people in 3 hours
Mm.
to build homes with our Lego bricks. The homes will be built in 40% of the time of buildings made with conventional material, and
Mm.
we can save people 40% on the cost of the home. And I just, boom, Lego bricks, boom, 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 this is what we do. And then everything
Mm.
after that is details,
Mm.
right? Because the value of your business, it's pretty much captured by that.
Mm.
With Lego, what amounts to Lego bricks, people can build homes. We can train them to do that in 3 hours.
Mm.
It takes 2/3 of the amount of time or 50% of the amount of time to build using this material rather than conventional materials at a cost saving of 40%.
Mm.
And I'm just making I'm rounding, so you would have to get the exact
Yes.
ratio.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boom, you say that, and then like, okay, if I need to go take a call right now, I know what you do.
Mm.
And again, I think all of that can be on your first slide, which let's go back to just the title slide. Yep, right there.
Yes. So I should change something. People can build beautiful home or what?
No, no, no. I think you have a great tagline. I don't think you need to change anything. I think you can just pretty much tell us 80% of what we need to know, just showing us this nice slide. You say, in 3 hours, we can train someone to build with these Lego bricks.
Yes.
This is what we do. We
Yes.
train people, we supply the bricks. And
Mm.
then you give us the 2/3, 40%. Now let me show you the details.
Mm.
Because fundamentally, what you do is very simple, right?
Yes.
So I think you can just tell it to me at the beginning. And look, folks, everyone, you need to also understand the psychology of your audience. If throughout I'm struggling to figure out exactly what it's all about, what makes you special in what you're doing, as an audience, I get frustrated because I feel kind of stupid. But if you just immediately at the front, you tell me what it's all about and I get it, then I feel
Mm.
smart.
Mm.
Then I know how to look at what you're saying. I know how to ask the right questions. But the more I'm struggling to make sense of what it's all about, the more of a frustrating experience it is as an audience. But if you empower me by telling me up front what it's all about, then I can kind of work with you throughout to make sense of what's important, and I can decide for myself what's important and what's not important later on when you get into the details. The problem with the linear approach, let me slowly build up what it's all about, is often people listening that because it's being built so slowly and incrementally is they get confused, frustrated, they develop a misunderstanding, they get impatient because it's moving too slowly. Whereas almost all businesses can be within a minute described pretty well so that most people know what the business is about. So if you can do that in 1 minute at the beginning and then everyone feels smarter after, why not do it? And again, all of that is often well done just over the title slide. So that's my advice to you. But
How about the problem? You feel that it too much for the text?
um, no, that's okay. It's that's fine because after after you tell me on the first slide what it's all about and what you can do, you can come to this and you can say, look, right now, even in 2017, the average cost to build a home in Phnom Penh was 63,000.
Mm.
Using our Lego bricks, we're going to get that down to around 40,000. And you can, after you've set it up and we know what it's all about, as you go through this, you can just say, look, here's the problem, and you can address it here. And if you show the problem and you address it here, then you might be able to get rid of some of these later slides that you have. They'll become redundant, which will be useful for you because you don't need to add more slides. You need to lose a few where you can. And if you can describe the problem and more or less key characteristics of your solution at the same time, it might make it more efficient. But I think this slide's okay. Next slide. Yep. So this is a nice slide because it shows what you do. Also, if you did your intro well at the beginning over the title slide, when you got to this, you won't have to spend much time on it because at the beginning you already told me we're going to train people. They can do it themselves. It's good. And when you get to this, you say, look, just to remind you, we're going to train people how to do it. They can do it themselves. It's going to be good for the environment, nice home. And you don't have to go through this slowly because in that 40-second start on the first slide, I kind of already know what this is all about. But you remind me here, which is okay. So instead of spending a minute on this slide, after the right setup, you only have to spend 20 seconds on this slide. Good. This is one of those things where I see big numbers, some legitimate sources. Now, since I already have a clear view of what the problem is about because of your first slide, I think you say this, say Habitat for Humanity estimated that we're going to need an additional 1 million homes by 2030. This was validated by the government, blah, blah, blah. And probably after you set it up, you need to spend 15 seconds on this slide, maybe. I'm just making up numbers, right? Not much time. This is good. I mean, this shows me that you know how the startup investment pitch works, right? You got your addressable market, your serviceable market. You have calculations. I get it. I think this was okay when you did it. It didn't feel like you were too short or too long. I thought that was fine. Let's look at the next one. Okay, but actually, I would have liked this sooner so that I knew what it was all about. Because actually, for me, the big hook of what you do, what helps me organize and understand it, is that the reason why all of this works is because of this Lego block nature. And if I kind of if I'm a little bit confused about what that means, I'm not engaging with you so much. But if I would maybe move that early on, where you say, look, this is what we do. It's easy to teach people how to use these, and you making houses that are strong and they're cool, right? Temperature is nice. Why? Because of these simple things right here. We teach people how to use them, we supply them. Okay, got it. So rather than slide 7, that should maybe be slide number 3, maybe, as an idea.
Move it to slide number 3 here.
Maybe. I mean, if that feels right to you, I'm just right. So you say the problem, and you say, just again to remind you, this is what the solution looks like. It looks like a Lego.
Yes.
I thought this was powerful because this shows that you have traction. It's not overwhelming, good traction. But since you have these numbers right now, that's a very believable forecast for me for 2025. Not hard to imagine. Competitors, great. Slide number 8, fine. It shows me that you know about that. Uh, I guess, this was okay. I would accelerate it. I don't know. For me, what stood out, and this is just me, sample size of one, that you guys are the biggest producer of these. So this is not some little random, you're doing it in your garage, but actually indicating that that's what stood out for me. So I wouldn't necessarily go through all of this in much detail. I would find what matters and what resonates with your audience and maybe just zoom in on one piece of that. That good. Go to slide 11. Good. People like to hear that. Okay, good. So 12, you didn't spend much time on it. It was believable by the time we got there. I think it's good. I don't think you have a lot of superfluous stuff. I think there are just some slides after you set it up at the beginning, you'll be able to go through some of these slides more quickly and get closer to the 5-minute mark.
Okay, thank you very much. So let
Okay, good. Very strong. Okay, folks, let's talk about how we can be productive with one another. We have the mighty networks. A lot of what we do here can be achieved also with you recording. Okay, you can record. And by the way, yes, sir, you're welcome. What, no matter what you're doing, it's going to benefit you tremendously to record yourself pitching. And I'll tell you this too, just be honest with you, it's probably going to be pretty painful to watch it, right? You're going to realize that you're balder than you think you are, or you sound funny, and it's going to be unpleasant. But it's very important. If you want to get your pitch dialed in, do it, suffer through the pain, and be especially critical of where are the parts where I'm just saying too much blah, 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 that I'm even boring myself when I watch it. Because probably the biggest problem with your pitch right now is that there's just too much boring stuff in it, that in the sense that it won't really matter so much to your audience. And if you get bored watching yourself, that part's not that interesting, imagine what it's like for your audience. And remember, attention works like a gate. So if you identify stuff in your pitch that's kind of boring, that seems like fluff, try to get out as much of that stuff as you can, because you're trying to get people to pay attention, and strip it away. And before you give it to us, do us a favor and do at least one round yourself of watching it and strip out the stuff that bored you. And before you give it to us, do a second take. Right? Why should we suffer through? And the way you get this stuff really dialed in is you just keep iterating that. And let me go back to my picture to wrap this up a bit. Be honest with yourself. Okay, in my pitch, if I were listening to this, would I find it actually engaging? Would it get my attention? If I told this to someone and this is why you need to imagine who your audience is going to be. If someone heard this and they didn't really know anything about my industry, what I'm doing, my technology, or if they did, because that's the kind of people you're going to pitch to, would it be clear? Probably you don't need to worry about the understanding part so much, because that's what you spend most of your time on. What you can start to think about is, if I just posted my pitch just as an example, just to illustrate. If I posted this pitch, suppose you did video, if I just put this up on LinkedIn and someone clicked on it, a couple things. If someone clicked on it, if it were on LinkedIn, would they keep watching? That's back to the attention part. Or would someone click and quickly a nice swipe? Okay, no. But if someone did click and watched, what I want you to start asking yourself is, a week later, what would they remember from my pitch? Okay, so what am I gonna? I'm gonna remember Lego blocks, and I'm probably from the last. I'm gonna remember Lego blocks, and they can teach people how to build homes with those Lego blocks in 3 hours. Okay, and it's gonna save. They can build homes at 2/3 the price of conventional material. Okay, but I'm probably gonna remember Lego blocks 3 hours, something like that. And that's pretty distinct and specific. That's kind of impressive. Now, what you need to think about is, okay, what are the things that are going to stand out and people are going to remember? And then, and this is the critical part, remember I told you that you can solve a lot by thinking about this. If someone were to repitch my idea to someone else, what would they say? And now that we've heard a few, you can start to appreciate the real power of this one. Because when someone repitches your idea to someone else, all those details that you had, they're not going to talk about all those details that you worried about on slide 18. They're going to boil it down to what they think is really critical about what your business and what you're doing. And that's what they're going to talk about to other people. And ideally, they'll be able to do it in a way that's compelling and interesting and engaging to those people. So, record yourself, be honest. Is it engaging? Sit down, watch it, reflect. What would someone remember after? And here's the thing, people remember specific things. What people don't remember is, oh, it takes less time. No, people remember things like, we can train someone to do this in 3 hours. That's what people remember. They remember specifics. And what will they tell other people? Once you feel comfortable that you have something that's pretty decent, post it. And look, everyone, today I was talking a lot, but you all can give your opinion also on everyone else. My opinion isn't special. So I want you to post. I want you to give feedback, support, your view when other people post, and I'll do the same. And we need to all work together. If we work together, we can improve a lot. Okay? Don't put all the work on me, think that you posted and just Neil replies. You all need to give feedback because you will learn by participating and helping improve other folks' stuff. And there's big value, and I'm just telling you what I hope you know. There is enormous value to you and your career and your company in getting this right. Because if you communicate it in a persuasive, compelling way, it can be the difference between getting funding and not getting funding. Between, you ending the runway and going back to a corporate job, or this becoming something big. And so do invest in getting your messaging right. It needs to be clear, crispy, and critically retellable. That's what we're aiming for. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you so much, Neil. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I think just before we wrap, I'd like to ask everybody to turn their cameras on for a quick group photo. And I hope that I'll go over just some last minute reminders before we end the call, especially on the feedback mechanism that Neil was just talking about. But if everybody could just turn on their cameras real quick. All right. And 1, 2, 3, smile, everybody. Great. Thanks so much, everyone. And thank you again, Neil. So there will be a follow-up session with Neil. He's doing another workshop and feedback session with us during our last learning lab in May. So, keep an eye out for that. I'll just quickly share my screen and show everybody what we've set up on Mighty Networks. So I want to thank Nikki for helping set this up for everyone. If you go to our Mighty Networks page, this is the home page. Go down to the topics button here. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Apologies, my internet's acting up. So in the topics page, you can scroll all the way down and you'll find a topic dedicated to pitching and impactful storytelling. So go ahead and follow that. Click that, and then you'll find that Mickey has set up a thread for each of the companies in the cohort. So for example, just this top one here is Tap Effect. So click that, and then you'll be able to hear attached either a video or a recording, anything for you to work on your pitch, and then everyone can comment their feedback here as well. So everyone has visibility, and you can just kind of go to each company here on the topics page. So we'll send this as a reminder in our weekly mailer, and then we'll also send it out through our Telegram group. So I do hope that everybody uploads their pitch here within the week. Neil, is there a specific timeline or deadline that you want everybody to follow?
No, they all have the right incentives. This is their company, so I'm not the boss. It's up to you. But probably it would be best for you if you worked on your pitch as soon as possible, because as we were looking at these other pitches, probably you got ideas about your own pitch, and the sooner you go start working on your stuff after hearing this today, probably the greater the impact you're going to get. If you wait for 2 weeks, you're going to forget what we talked about today. Something that struck you that was important will probably be lost. I would do it now.
Great. All right. Okay, so that's it. And again, just some reminders for everybody. Our portfolio review calls are ongoing this week. And those are also the calls where you get to meet your Autodesk mentor. So if you haven't yet scheduled them, please reach out to Abby. And then lastly, just on making sure that we're capturing enough feedback, if you could all go to menti.com and enter the code 12015030, we have a very, very quick feedback form for you to answer. I think Mickey will also send a link in the chat box below. We'll also send this out on Telegram. We just want to know how you felt about today's session, any comments, suggestions on how we can make our master classes better, and even topics that you'd want us to cover in the next few weeks or months. I see some comments also in the chat box. We will be sharing a recording only for this cohort, and that will be in the Mighty Networks group as well. So there are a few members of the cohort that couldn't make it today, some health issues. So happy to share that. But please do keep it within the ShelterTech cohort only. All right. I think that's it for today. So thank you everybody for joining us, and see you at our next session. Thank you again to Neil for all of the helpful feedback and this great session.
Thank you, everyone. See you around.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. See you.